Good day and welcome back to part 4 of how to build a play-by-email PBEM or a head-to-head scenario. So the idea behind this, just as a refresher, is that we are building a scenario that is not going to involve any AI play. This is strictly for human versus human. But we are going to utilize some of the new features within the attached Lua file that we will generate here in a moment to make the scenario a little more interesting for our play by email, as opposed to just go and capture location and that's it, right? So as you know, we have completed our scenario. This is part 4. And this is the final part, and what we're going to be doing here is, so we have finished our scenario file, we have laid out all of our troops, we have placed the objectives where we want. To start off, since it's kind of like a meeting engagement, we have both sides with 10 objectives, and I think everything is set to go. We will maybe modify these later, and we will modify these after, but everything else is fine. We gave each side smoke. We're going to leave the visibility at 8, so 2 kilometers. It's 20 turns. The key is to ensure that before you start generating the Lua file, that you have completed this point as much as possible. You've added all the units that you wanted. You've added all the objectives. You've added the landing zones that you want. You want to make sure that your scenario file is as complete as possible. All right, so we're going to save this. I'm going to double check the names, display file names. So XP580631, that's the date. PBEM set 1, okay. And I think we have saved that as well, which we did. Let's just overwrite it just to be safe. There we go. Now we're done. I'm going to leave this open because we're going to need to access it later. Here is a Cygwin window, and this is how we're going to generate the Lua file. I'm using this type of Cygwin terminal, but there is another way of doing it. Once I have my installation upgraded to that point, I'll make a new video as to how to use the other windows. I think it's through Ubuntu or something like that. Most people are going to be using that. This is just how I've been doing it, so this is what I'm used to, so therefore I'm just going to use this. The key thing is that this part won't change. This part is the same. No matter what system you're using, this part is the same. And here, for me, all that I've done here is I've changed my directory to the CSLint directory within my installation, and now I'm going to use the csmakelua.pl. This will generate a Lua file based on my scenario. So as you can see, this is the original scenario file, and then this is going to be the Lua file that we're going to create. Ideally, and a good habit to get into, is all your files should have the same name, just so you know. So here we're just going to double check display file names. This file name is the same, set C1, and so there we go. We're all happy here. Now that is entered, I am going to press enter, and it did not find it. Why didn't it find it? Why didn't it find it? Did I not do it in the right spot? XP580631, email set C01, send. 580631. Haha! You see that it was incorrect. So let's change this to 3-1. There you go. Good lesson. Make sure that everything is the correct name. Now you see it's 3-1. It's 3-1. Now it should work. Now I'm going to press enter. And there we go. As you can see, it generated a Lua file. Now, to edit that Lua file, you can edit that in any text editor, but I highly, highly recommend that you download and install Visual Studio Code. And let's bring that over. That's what this is. I'm just going to refresh this file, the folder I mean, and we're going to scroll down and try and find our Lua file, and there it is. So it generates a Lua file for you, and this is what it looks like. It has all your objectives, has your landing zones, and has all the units that you've placed on the map. Not in the org file, just the ones that are found on the map, or as reinforcements. Alright, let's start at the top, and let's start filling this in. Alright, first thing to do, put your name there. Just so you know, for the scenario, and then descriptor, that's going to be you as well. I like to add a couple other additional fields, and we're just going to call this, is it 3 or 4 today? I don't even know. It's 3. So today it's April 3rd, and I'm using the version. I'm going to type in the version of this, and it's the 1.20 beta update. You can use this in the 1.11 update version. This is just my beta version, so yeah. I like to make sure that I know which version of the scenario or the game that I built this particular Lua file in. Alright, let's continue. So on startup, this is a place where you would set additional variables. We don't care about that for here. Same with on resume. We don't care about this right now. This will be important if you're going to be building AI scenarios, but we're not in this case. Here, you're going to want to add the side A, if I recall correctly. Sides. We have it so that side A is set to France and side B is set to the United States. So to make things easier later, let's go like this. French side is going to be equal to side A. So when we're building our code later, we'll be able to understand quite simply is equal to side B. So here, French side, we can use these variables very simply down below. That way you don't get mixed up. Oh, which one is side A, which one is side B? You just know already off the top of your head what it is. So that's good. Here are all the objectives. Now, here's the fun part. We're going to take some of these objectives and we're going to group them. How do we do that? Well, we're going to go like this. Let's find an area. So here, we're going to say, we're going to call this and my try core, and that is going to equal these two objectives. So these two objectives are going to constitute the center of this town. How do we know what objective numbers those are? Well, we can go to display map hits, and you can see that this one is 4 and this one is 5. So we're going to add objectives 4 and objectives, if I can spell correctly, 5. Notice that I'm separating them by a comma, and they're both in these curly type brackets. So now, whenever I reference this, it'll know that it'll include both of these two objectives. So let's add a few more, and my try surrounding, or villages we'll say. And these are going to include these 3 villages. And we have to figure out what those numbers are, so let's turn off the labels. And it's 1, 2, and 3. So let's just copy and paste that. Let's change that to 1. Let's change that to 2. And let's copy that like so. Call it 3. The nice thing about Visual Studio Code is that it will, if this changes to red, you know that there's an error in there somewhere. All right, what else? We have and my, and there's a couple of objectives there. So let's make those the next one, just and my villages. And these are 7 and 11. You can see the numbers. So 7, 11. This one here is by itself, so we will just call that by itself. So that is Fwan Huo village, and that is just going to be objective 6. There we go. Hill 54 is going to be the same, so we'll just call this Hill 54, and that is objective 8, as you can tell by the identifier right there. We have Phu Thon. That consists of 4 objectives, and we're going to have it so that it is all 4 objectives. So let's zoom in there, see what numbers they are. 9, let's turn the labels off. 9, 10, 13, 17. So let's grab the big one. Let's change this. What was that called? Sorry. Phu Thuan villages. That's fine. And we see that it's 9, 10, 13, and let's add 17. This will be important when we go to assign some additional objectives for capturing. So we have my Than here. So we have my Than villages. Let's do that. Let's add that together. And it looks like there's a couple of them. Actually, let's start with the core. Let's start with the core. My Than core. And that's that objective and this objective. And what numbers are those? 15 and 16. So 15 and 16. And then we have my Than villages. Or we could even say hamlets or whatever you want to call them. Totally up to you. And that is this one and this one, which is 12 and 14. 12 and 14. And we have 2 more objectives up here. They are Nam Phuoc villages. So let's grab those. Nam Phuoc villages. And they're 18 and 19 if I recall. Yes, 18 and 19. 18 and 19. And then finally we have this back here, which is by itself. We'll just call that An Hoi. Again, pardon me butchering these names. An Hoi village. Now it's, yeah, just An Hoi village, and that is objective 20. So if I recall correctly, we have all of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Okay, so we have 20 objectives. They're all assigned to something fun. That's good. Let's save that. Now let's go down. Now here we have all of our units that are included, which is great. But we're going to create a variable. What we're going to do, we're going to create a couple of things. Let's hide this, and we're going to make a duplicate screen here, but you can do that by pressing the split, which is just like that. So we're going to say, let's build US, no, let's go French coys, and that's going to equal a whole bunch of numbers. Pardon me. And we're going to do US coys, and that's going to equal a bunch of numbers. And then we're going to use French underscore supply group, and that is going to equal some numbers. And down below we have US supply group, and that is going to equal a bunch of numbers. So let's take a look at what these numbers are going to be. These are the French units. So let's start populating this. So we have the French companies are going to be 133. You can identify this company here, and this company here consists of all these units. So 133 consists of all these units. So all we're going to do is we're going to type in 133. We're going to put a comma, and then we're going to do 142, 142, and we're going to do 151, 151. Let's add the tanks and the reconnaissance. 174 and 190. Let's see, do we want to worry about the rest of it? Nah, that's fine. We'll just leave that the way that it is. Now let's scroll up and take a look at the Americans, and we'll add the values for the Americans as well. So we have 52, 52, and we have, 61, and we have 70. That takes us to there. We didn't include the engineers, but we will include the tank company, which is 97, and then the reconnaissance, which is 104. These are all the combat elements, and we're going to make calculations for victory on both sides using these little French coys and US coys. Now, the supply groups, what we want to do is have it so that it incorporates, let's see, the French. We have the headquarters, the battalion headquarters, which is 132. You can tell that by here. 132. And then we're going to look for the supplies. Let's look over here. We have a supply which is 165. That's the one that's going to be helping to supply the battalion headquarters. So let's do that. It is 165. Now what we'll do down below is that if this particular supply truck is close to the French headquarters, there will be a supply bonus every handful of turns, or every few turns, or something like that. Now let's do the same thing for the Americans. So we have the headquarters, which is 49. And the supply unit is, let's see, where's the supply unit? There it is. It is 89. So this is only going to work if these two units are on the map. So if the supply trucks gets destroyed, this is no longer gonna be active. All right, there we go. That's good progress. Here we have the battle plan, the instructions about what they're supposed to do. We'll come back to this. Let's continue to scroll down. Alright, you'll see that this is all commented out, but we want to keep this. So how to uncomment it? You just select it and delete these two elements here, and that'll highlight everything, as you can see. What does that mean? That means on every turn, if one side has fired, either side A or side B has fired, they will suffer 2 ammo level reduction. So you'll see that it starts at 100. But after they fire, it'll start reducing by 2 every turn. So for 20 turns, if they don't get resupplied, that means they'll be down to 40 by the, they will reduce 40 to be down to 60 by the end of the scenario. All right, next. Let's talk about the supply bonus, and we're going to do that in on next phase. So this is on next turn. So on next turn is the beginning of side A, no matter what. And then on next phase is either side A or side B. Now let's utilize our supply units up top, and we're going to make a supply bonus for the French. So I'm just going to make a comment, supply bonus for the French side if keeping supply near the headquarters during the noted turns. So if turn is going to equal 4, notice the double equals here, or turn is going to equal 8, or turn is going to equal 12, or, and finally, turn is going to equal 16, then what we're going to do is if the counter extent of the French supply group, which is this, is less than 2, so that means that the 2 units have to be within 2 hexes, otherwise it's not going to get the bonus. Then what we'll do is increment the ammo level of the French side by 5. So that means if on turn 4 or turn 8 or turn 12 or turn 16, if the French supply group is within less than 2 hexes, the ammo level for the French side will increase by 5. Let's do the same for the artillery. So increment the RT ammo level for the French side, also, comma 5. So that'll be the same for there. Now let's offer a message. Oops, French reminder for supply cohesion. And here we'll say keep your supply close to your headquarters to continue gaining additional supply. And that will be available for the French side. And we'll add another French side. And close that off there. So this is a message strictly for the French side to say that. And then we'll end. And there we go. Did I do that right? Oh, I forgot a comma. There we go. Let's just double check. Yeah, we're good. And then end. So here, let's just save this. If that's turn 4, 8, 12, or 16, and then if this is within, we have a message that will keep oh, we don't need this bracket. The French reminder, keep your supply close, French side, there we go. Okay, we are happy with that. Now, what we can do is just quickly copy and paste this and change the French to US. US supply group, the US side, and the US side, US reminder, the US notification, and the messages will go to the US side. So this means that the French and the Americans will both have the opportunity to gain supply if they keep that particular supply unit or that supply group together within 2 hexes on these key turns. There you go. That's sweet and simple. That's a little added bonus that, that makes logistics kind of important within here. And that's fun. Now, here, we're going to do something. We're going to utilize some of these points that we established over here. Some of these little, some of these fancy little things here. So, remember, we grouped these 2 things together, objectives 4 and 5, and we called it and my tri-core. Now, what we're going to do is that we're going to create a set of code that will accumulate points for the French for as long as they hold that. So every few turns or every couple of turns, they're going to get some additional points as long as they hold those things. So I'm going to pause it here, and I'm going to type it all up. That way you don't have to watch, because it'll be terrible and it'll take a while. And then we'll come back to this and show you what I've done. Stay tuned. And just like that, we're back. And I've done exactly what I've said. So let me explain what I've done here. So I made 2 categories. One equals if side equals French. So if the French side, it's going to look at this stuff here. Or if side equals US side, it'll look at this stuff here. So what I've done is that, remember this, we have and my tri-core based on objectives 4 and 5, which, if you recall from the scenario, is this core of this village. That's how we establish that. We've said that if it is owned by the French side for a number of turns, in this case 3 turns, they will get 50 event points for doing so. So it says in increment event points by 50. So we get 50 event points for holding it for 3 turns. And then we get another additional 50 event points for holding it for 5 turns, and 7 turns, and 9 turns, and 11 turns, and 13 turns. So the longer the French hold this, they will gain points. Now, the same area, the same 2 things, the French, or the Americans, will gain precisely the same thing. There's a copy-paste error. Haha. Got me. So if the Americans happen to capture that, even though that's in the middle of French territory, if they can capture it, the longer they hold it, the more points they will accumulate by doing so. This is a way where you can have it so that, yeah, sure, you can go and capture the points on the last turn, but you're not going to gain anything by doing it. You want to get in there early, and you want to capture that as much as possible. Alternatively, you also want to have it so that the French side don't accumulate the points. I think that's just fun. There's so much potential. You can go in there and disrupt your opponent from gaining the points while still holding on to your points and, accumulating as many as you possibly can. Additionally, you can go in and take some points away by holding the key areas. So looking at, the main area in the south here, right now, no one owns this entire area. So therefore, no one is going to collect points, not until they own all 4 of those objectives. Now, you won't know what those objectives are because they're not signed out for you. But fortunately, they're all named with the same name. So it's fair to assume, okay, if I hold all of those units or all of those villages, I should start collecting points. Now, if you do happen to hold it for 2 and one of them gets taken back, that's fine. It's a cumulative thing. So even if you take it back 2 turns, then it'll start adding up again. So you'll start getting your values here. So what I'm going to do is, again, I will pause it and I will build the same thing for all of these here. Basically what I'll be doing is just copying, pasting, and then editing and making sure that this is all correct. This is super simple, and it's an easy way to make things a little more interesting at the combat level. Alright, I shall be back and I'll show you when I'm done. There we go. So I've now added areas, points gained for all of these different areas here. I did decide to make the variable, sort of the total points for each of these areas somewhat different. The core areas will be worth more than if you took some of the side areas, but still, no matter what you're holding, you're going to gain points. So I did this for both the French and the Americans. They are identical because it's a meeting engagement, play by email or head-to-head. So the idea is to try and make this as balanced as possible for collecting points. And that's pretty much what I did there. That's quite exciting. I'm happy that turned out the way that I wanted it to. And yeah, so obviously you can open up this file when it's made available, and you can see precisely how I did that, or even just copy and paste this entire block and then change the variables depending on whatever variables that you made here. Generally, it's pretty straightforward. If something is owned by the US side, we're going to give it a new a variable name here, and it's going to be counting every turn. It'll be counted that it does, and then once the turn equals 3, this happens. Once the turn equals 5, that happens, or the owned count equals 5, sorry. And then this will change. Alright, so let's continue on. We don't have to worry about the battle plans, because again, this is going to be a head-to-head scenario. That's all good. Now, let's go down here. What we're going to do is we're going to uncomment out this. That way, it gives you, when an objective is captured, for example, by the French side, we'll have the French accommodations. Be displayed so that they'll get a little pop-up that says, hey, great idea, good thing for you, blah, blah, blah. So there's a 22% chance, that's what this is, a die roll out of 100, and a 22% chance that the player will receive a shout. So there's also the US, so if it's not going to be the French, then it'll be if the side is French, it'll come up with French. If it gets hit, yes, and if not, it'll be for the Americans. And let's scroll down here. On unit fire, we want to uncomment this out, like so. And we want to do the same for artillery fire. This helps keep track of when something is fired for the ammo reduction as mentioned above. Here you can, this is where if you want indirect fire and airstrike to cause a reduction in event points for both sides if they are hitting, that's the political thing. I don't think that we really care about this. It's just a play-by-email scenario. It's going to be for fun, so I'm not going to comment that out. I will just leave it the way that it is. Here on unit reduce, this will be a little more interesting. So let's uncomment this. And right now this means that let's say French side. So we're going to include event points here at 25 times whatever the amount of loss of the helicopters that the Americans lose. So let's change this to French side and change this to French side, that only the French are getting the notifications. And basically you'll have a notice that says for destroying X amount of helicopters, the French side will gain 25 times that number in event points, which is great. Now we're going to do the exact same thing for the Americans. And if the Americans, the US side, if the French happen to lose helicopters, then the Americans will get the points. Just like that. All right. Now, do you remember up here where we have the French COIs and US COIs? So what we're going to do is that we're going to have it so that if here, I'm just going to copy and paste something. There we go. So this is a reduced check. If the French, so US COIs, this means that they're going to do a check against the US COIs, and if a reduction of 50% has been found, then the French are going to gain 100 event points. And let's do the same thing for the French. So then we'll go French COIs. And now we're going to swap these around. So it's the French and the American. And the same. If there's a 50% reduction in one of the companies that we've assigned in here, right? Then the Americans are going to gain 100 event points. There we go, just like that. Now let's make some additional kill things here. Ha ha ha. So if we happen to kill something, we get extra points for that. So let's scroll up at our unit list here, and let's go to the Americans. So this is the headquarters. So if the headquarters, I'm joining these two units, if the headquarters or the leader, for example, gets killed, then the French side will gain awards for that. So let's note, we'll make that the French. We'll make this French side and the French side. So again, if one of these two units will gain, are destroyed, or both of them, or no, one of them, doesn't matter which one, they'll gain 25 event points for the French for destroying them, which is kind of cool. So we can do the exact same thing. Let's just copy and paste that there. And now let's find the French. This is the battalion headquarters. And here's the French leader. So the exact same, except we're going to change this to the US side. And this to the US side. And this. And this. So again, so these are in addition to whatever the points that you would gain if you because a unit, every strength point in a unit is worth X amount of points, right? So this is a bonus. If you happen to kill these two, then you gain a bonus. Now I'm going to pause it again here, and I will make a handful of these, and I'll show you when I'm done. There's no sense you watching me type in all this, so I'll just explain it here in a minute. Hang on, I will be right back. All right, and we're back. So I just added a few more additional ones to bonuses for killing certain things. For example, I added the company leader to both of the units here, the listing here. I added the engineer platoons, and I added the supply trucks. So if you destroy either of the engineer platoons, you will gain 30 points or 60 points in total for both of them. For the supply trucks, you gain an additional 50 points each, and for the leaders, you gain 25 points plus the headquarters. You get 25 points for each, so 75 points in total. Both sides have the same thing. They both have equal amounts. And in the bottom, if you happen to destroy a complete company, in this case, the French will gain an extra 200 points for killing any US company, and the French or the Americans will gain 200 points for killing any French company. And you know, I think that's pretty much it. So again, we're not going to worry about this because this is a reduction in event points for striking habitat hexes with indirect fire or airstrikes. We don't care about that because this is a free fire battle. And you know what? That's it. That's all we're going to do. This sets up a play-by-email Lua file. That should be good to go. Actually, what we're going to do is do a Lua check and make sure that it's okay. So I'm just going to find the right code here. 1 second. There we go. There's a Lua check. This is found in CSLint as a tool that we provide you. And you can XP double check your code to make sure that there are no errors in it. It's not foolproof, but it's a really good start. So again, I'm going to make sure that I have the right name. 0631, which is 63631. I am going to check the Lua file, and let's see what happens when I press enter. Hopefully something good. Positive vibes. Okay, we don't care about that. Yeah, we forgot to do our briefings. Okay, let's do that. And reference just twice. These are just warnings. That's fine. Notices, warning. And this, we don't care about that because it does not affect our units. So yeah, we're generally good with the exception of the briefing. Let's scroll down to the briefing, which is here. Okay, just give me a few minutes and I will fill this out. And there we go. I have, just like that, filled in some information about the mission and a warning that says this is designed for head-to-head play. The AI is not scripted. Please find a human opponent. And I did that for both sides, so that way if you decide to load it up from either side, you'll get the same warning. Here just gives you a very, very basic briefing about what the plan is, what you're in command of, the enemy forces that are suspected to be in the area. I usually break out my missions into 2 missions, a primary mission and a secondary mission. If you can complete both of them, then theoretically you should get a major victory. Some advice on how to advance, what you should be looking for, and then if there's any political considerations. In this case, no, I turned that off for this particular scenario. A reminder about supply and what the weather is going to be. And I do the same thing for both sides, just because it is going to be head-to-head. There we go. Just like that, we have completed our Lua file. And again, we'll just do one more test to make sure that it's all hunky-dory. Don't care about that. That's fine. These are just notices, and it's reference. If this said once, that would be something that I'd be concerned about. But because it's twice, that's fine. Oh, that's wrong. That's a typo. Let's find that. Level. Aha. That would not work. So ammo level is correctly spelt now. That will work. Okay, let's just save that. U.S. accommodations. U.S. supply group is used twice. That's fine. That's fine. Let's just double check to make sure that that is correct. And that is removed now since we spelt it correctly. There we go. We are done. Thank you for tuning in. I will post this at the Blitz, and this will be available in your 1.20 update, which will probably be out, I suspect, in May 2022. Otherwise, you can find this at the Blitz Wargaming Club, as well as Matrix Game Forum in the scenarios section. I will post some of these tools that I'm using within the Lua file just to give you some additional information. Feel free to open this and copy and paste or play with it as much as you want. It's a very simple tutorial, but at least it gets you started and showing you that Lua and scripting is not that scary. It's just some logic. That's all that it is. Some basic logic. When we go into the videos for explaining how to do additional Lua scripting, I will show you the documentation for how these work, and there's hundreds and hundreds of different types of variables that we can use to make some fascinating and interesting scenarios for the AI. But this here, general explanation about how a Lua file works for play by email and how to make it far more interesting. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below, or go to the Matrix forum or our Facebook or wherever. If you enjoy what we do and you want to support us, we are on Patreon. And yeah, there we go. Thank you so much. Much appreciated. Take care. Good luck. Happy scenario building.